This makes me uncomfortable.
Welcome to the This Makes Me Uncomfortable podcast, where we discuss all the things that make us uncomfortable. I am your co-host, Allura.
And I'm your other co-host, Jade. The summer is already coming to an end. Your tan lines are awkward, or sunburns for our Melanin Challenge listeners, but we know white people don't really listen to us in any situation. And your ice cream gorging is no longer seasonal, it's just becoming sad.
But this time of year is also back to school season. Equally exciting and also anxiety inducing. We're the teachers' pets that will also get the teachers fired, and we're here to help you gear up for a new academic year. Let's hit the cheerleaders. I mean the books. All right, Jade. It's been a while.
It's
but
too long.
I don't know how to do this anymore. So want to share what you did this summer, and hopefully it was uncomfortable, or give us some kind of rant inconvenience that happened.
Oh, this summer has been super uncomfortable. I think I was, I've never been the person who's like, ooh, summertime, time to break out the bikini and get slutty, y'all. I've never been that kind of person, or like a drinks on the beach sort of person, because I just have a hard time enjoying life in general. But I think I was actually looking forward to this summer because the first half of the year was very difficult for me in a lot of ways. So I had this whole trip planned that I talked about during our travel episode. And it didn't happen because of demon possession. My family was stricken by this exorcist caliber projectile vomiting virus that kind of just took everyone down the first night of our trip. So it wasn't even like the day before, it happened the first night of the trip. So just when all that adrenaline is rushing and you're excited to get out and go away and get kitschy souvenirs and smash those pennies in those machines, it all came crumbling down in that first day. So I didn't get to do the trip to see family and to be in nature and to do all the things that I thought would be very healing for me this summer. So yeah, it's been really terrible. The sun is out, but the mood is down. So when people ask me how my summer is, I'm just gonna say, fuck you and your mother too. Because that's how I'm feeling. But, I mean, what was something that was making you uncomfortable this summer, Allura? I know you had a much better trip than I did because you had a trip. But inevitably, when people ask you when school starts, how was your summer, Allura? What are you going to say to make them cringe and slink away?
Well, that was a downer, Jade. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. I'm always
I went to Japan this summer for 3 weeks. And that was equally amazing and uncomfortable in its own way. There was 15 of us, all family, and just like sharing the same space and like hotel room with the same like people you live with for an extended amount of time is so infuriating, and everyone wants to kill each other, especially because it was so hot as well. It was like 94% humidity every single day. So
but
that was great, and fun and exciting. I just like feel like a little weird and bad about like complaining about like my trip
You
because like
should.
I know it's like such like an amazing like opportunity and like chance to like travel, but the reality of it is like you have to pick people who you're going to be okay with for an extended amount of time or it's just not going to go well.
Mhm.
But it's also family, so you can't really choose that. But it was good. It was great, but I'm happy to be home.
Well, your company really makes or breaks the trip because those stressful situations of traveling, it really brings to the surface those qualities or foibles that can grate on your nerves. Was there any characteristic about someone or even about yourself that rose to the surface during this trip that was really aggravating?
um Yeah, we all simultaneously started hating one particular family member. And I won't say who it is to kind of spare their feelings because I know family members listen to this for some reason. But we all collectively started hating this one person in particular, and it just made the whole like trip just like never ending and frustrating. And it was just, but that's like with any like one person, like you can spend so
Mhm.
much time with them and eventually you'll end up just being like, oh my god, how are you even alive right now? How are you a person? And I'm also like, weird to say, I'm usually the mediator in the
Mhm.
family, even though like I, because I just, I'm like, was that a necessary comment to say? Even though I can sometimes be like super unnecessary all the time and yell at people, but I knew I was going to be the mediator on this trip, and that's exactly what happened. Maybe I'm just a self fulfilling prophecy, but who
Well,
knows?
it can be very exhausting to be the Switzerland in the
Yeah.
family. But yeah, I hear you. Even the most innocuous things get really irritating. I notice a lot. Um, I always like to couch things in very serious downer things, but in trauma therapy, they always say, "Oh, to regulate your nervous system, you should try tapping." But whenever I am traveling and someone is tapping their foot or tapping their fingers on something, it drives me batshit crazy. Like this fury just boils in my veins, and I have to explode on that person. Like, why are you fucking tapping? Stop it! It makes me more anxious. So, so I tell this story to say that no trauma therapy will ever save me. So, well, I'm glad you had a good. So now we're kind of, as summer goes by so quickly, I think the older you get, it feels like the shorter it is. But now we're, especially in a capitalist society, mid July, the back to school stuff is already out. They're gearing us up to buy, buy, buy. So there's pencils, notebooks, backpacks, all that good back to school gear. So I'm wondering, when you think back on these back to school years you had in grade school and college, but even now working in a college system where we literally go back to school every August, what school supply are you most invested in? Like, what is the back to school material that you feel really represents your identity? And if you don't get it right, your year is ruined and you're a terrible student and person.
Yes. This was such a big part of school. And I remember getting those like supply like lists from like your teachers in like grade school. And I was like so excited because I just love like all the different things and supplies. I'm very much like a things person. Like I like to have possessions.
Mhm.
Um, and so I remember I always needed like a bag. Like, what was the bag that was going to get me through all the hardship this year? And then
Where will you
also,
carry all?
like, I remember really needing to invest in like a sturdy like binder or notebook.
Oh, sturdy. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I would also like put like in the binder like things that like I've always been like big on like collages
Mm-hmm.
as you can
As you, your whole
because I feel like pictures like and like just representation like it just represents who you currently are as a person, and so I wanted the binder to show who I was as a person because I didn't really talk or I was very shy and reserved, so I
Mhm.
wanted that to be kind of like a representation of me even though I wasn't like being social and I wasn't putting myself out there. I still wanted some like subliminal message. And then also
Wow.
like what.
I was just gonna say that's a very uncanny similarity between us because growing up, well, at least in my teenage years, my walls were collaged from ceiling to floor as well. And I would always decorate my binder with pictures that I felt really emblematized who I was that year because it was easier to communicate and try to connect with people based on shared interests like a band or a TV show or movie or whatever rather than saying something personal about myself. So I'd always advertise that on my binder or on my backpack or like when I was a punk rocker I had patches all over all my sweaters and jackets. So if someone liked the same band, boom, you were friends and we didn't have to talk
Instant
about
connection.
yeah, exactly. So that is something that we definitely have in common. Oh my god.
God, look at us.
God, what do you do on your college this semester?
um, yeah. And then I also like I'm such a color coding person, so I always needed the color coding pens or markers or whatever it was that year that it needed.
Making OCD beautiful.
Yes. I used to take notes in class, but if like they just went too fast, I would literally redo the notes at home
Hmm.
in like my color coding system.
Yeah,
Like if I like it was too much in the moment there, and everyone was like, "Laura, what are you doing? Why
yeah.
are you making so much work?" And I was like, "You don't get it. Like I need the color coding system or I can't focus."
There was something really satisfying about recopying words and getting your your fonts just right, turning
Mhm.
the human to machine. I remember redoing my A's because I thought it was super cool. When I changed schools, I noticed that some kids were doing the computer A in their handwriting, and I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm gonna do that. And so I'd spend time retraining my hand and my brain to write that way. So I'd redo notes as well. So I think we're finding a lot of shared mental illness this
Yes,
episode.
I was just gonna just gonna say these are all very telling of our mental
Oof. Well,
downfalls.
think about the hours we wasted on collages, carefully cutting out magazine pictures and recopying notes. How are we still alive?
I don't
Like one third of our lives have been wasted on this nothing.
It's very
And
disturbing.
I know too that another thing we've had in common that we've talked about before is our interest in stickers. How we love stickers, but we were too anxious to use
Yeah.
them, so we stockpiled all these stickers for fear of not finding the right place or time or person to stick it on.
Hmm.
Fear of permanence, I guess.
Fear of
Permanent.
committing.
Yeah.
Because like it was such a rare sticker. I mean, it came in like a pack, like but I was just like, what if I found another better place to put this? And it's too late because I already committed to putting it there.
Yeah. And what if you use the last one and then you can never get that sticker back?
Yeah. It's
This is
severe attachment issues I'm coming to realize with stickers.
yes, a fear of loss.
Yeah.
And I also feared that if I made a mistake, I was unlovable, so I would be thrown in the dumpster by
Oh my
everyone.
gosh. Okay, beef. I texted you when
Yeah.
as I was watching it, and this is a spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, just like skip through this point. But I still like have never felt more understood or seen from a show before in my life. Like that one specific scene, I think it was like on episode 7 or 8, like when Ali Wong's character is like having flashbacks of her childhood and her like childhood, like, I don't know, demon like person
Mhm.
comes and like is overseeing her doing bad things, and she was like, don't tell anyone.
Mhm.
The
Yes.
response was like, I would never. And she was like, why? She was like,
Yeah.
because no one would love you if they knew your secrets. And I was just like, oh my god.
It's funny because if I talk about that show with anyone else besides you, they're like, wow, that was really dark and intense. I'm like, that is literally my interior monologue all day
Yeah.
long every day.
No,
Yeah.
I like Steph was watching it, and I was just like trying to like, connect with her on the content, and she had the typical just like white response and was like, no, like that is unhealthy, like that's not normal. And I was just like,
Mm.
okay.
I totally get it. Yeah, just even something as inane as a sticker misplaced, or ooh, when you put it on and it gets a little wrinkled or akimbo, that is grounds for being disowned from your family and no one ever loving you because of all the mistakes you've made. It just, you're trash.
Yeah.
So we have that. But I will raise you one and say that my most prized school supply was a feat of your people's engineering. Japan gifted us the
Mhm.
Sanrio pencil boxes, the
Oh
mechanical.
my gosh.
Yes, with the color coded buttons, and you press it, and like out would pop a sharpener or a secret drawer where you could tuck little treasures inside and keep all those secrets from everyone around you. So it was like very systematic and structured, which appeased my need for order and stability and familiarity, but it also enabled me to keep secrets as
Hmm.
well. So it was like the embodiment of all of my emotional problems was that Sanrio pencil box. Oh, and the magnetic lid. Oh, honey, so satisfying. Clicking it shut, pulling it open, and it would always close perfectly in the puffy top. Ugh, Asian American girl's dream.
It was pretty elite.
What do you remember which one you had?
I remember like going to like the Asian markets when it was like time for school supplies, because they always had like the best. And I think I would just collect them over the years. Like I always needed like
Mm-hmm.
the newest one or like one that would suit me. So I think I had like multiple of them.
Mm, that hurts because I didn't get new school supplies or school clothes every year, so I really treasured that mind melody. Only one. But I mean, I totally agree. I would try to collect Sanrio stuff as much as possible. Like going, this is back when there was an actual Sanrio store, and just to get a pencil or whatever my mom could afford, it felt so special to have this collection. And I think my mom, even though she didn't have the money to afford that stuff, she really indulged me because of she grew up in a childhood where there was none of that stuff, and she didn't have that whole collecting experience. And she made me feel bad about it, but she still got it for me. Spoiled
And
American.
that's love.
Yeah, what's a little love without making someone feel guilty for all that they are and all that they have? But I think that was one of the things that made me super anxious about going back to school too, is I was always afraid of being judged that I didn't have a new wardrobe or a new backpack or new shoes all the time. I remember there was a couple years where I had to make my shoes last as long as possible, and I was getting ingrown toenails because my toes were pressing against the shoes. They were too tight, and I was recycling clothes and it's really fucked up the way kids get trained to be like, "Ugh, you wore that in third grade." It's like, what the fuck aren't we picking our noses and like like we're just kids, but there's all of this classist stuff going on. So I felt really nervous going back to school some years because I didn't have the coolest, newest thing. And that got way worse when I moved from LA to Orange County, where people were more affluent and had all these brand names. And I just felt a lot of pressure to beg my mom for this, that, and the other. And my dad, when I would see my dad, he would actually take me to the mall to buy clothes every year. So I was grateful for that because that was a moment where I felt like, oh, I could keep up with the Joneses here. And oh, this is like a whole assimilation thing too, because most of the kids in Orange County were white or Korean. So they had all this more money, and I was trying to fit in and act and dress like them. So I was it was sad. So I always felt worried about being judged on the material stuff, but also my behavior and the way that I talked. So that part of back to school was really nerve-wracking of, oh my gosh, am I going to fit in with these new kids? And also, I know we've talked about this off air a lot, but that fear of not being liked by the teacher. Oh my
What's the
God.
worst fear?
Yes, I just put the teachers on such a pedestal because I really needed an adult figure, especially a woman figure, to like me and praise me and validate me. So I was always so nervous going back to school of making sure that this teacher liked me, and I wanted the teacher to have a routine that I could adjust to and excel at because school was really the only place where I could get that validation. So what I'm saying is school was a place where all of my emotional problems were on
Emotional turmoil.
a walking mess from kindergarten on. But what made you most nervous about going to school, especially as a kid?
um just all the social interaction, like, because I've mentioned this multiple times, I was literally deathly shy of everyone and everything. Like, I think I wanted the teachers like to like me, but actually I wanted just to like not, I just wanted to blend in. Like, it would be
Mm-hmm.
okay if they didn't know my name, like as long as I wasn't making a scene or like I wasn't doing too much, like where they would like praise me. Like
Yeah.
I really just wanted to like blend in to the crowd and not make myself noticeable to others, because I just didn't want that attention, but I wanted them to like me.
Dude, I hear you on that. It's a super tricky balance too, because you want to do well enough where you're not drawing attention for being bad or getting in trouble, but you also don't want to do so well that they're nominating you for an award or asking you to do more or stand out or making other kids look at you as an example of what to be. That was fucking equally humiliating as getting in trouble because I felt so exposed. And also, that's probably the seeds of imposter syndrome too. Oh, why are you this little ribbon, my certificate that says this? I don't deserve this. Oh, I remember once I got a citizenship award, which, come on, you picked the wrong candidate there. But it was so funny because this was like one of the few times that my mom got off work and like came to the assembly room to watch me get this award. And the person, whatever teacher was announcing the names, I guess the handwriting was messy, but she pronounced my name Jekyll because I don't think the D was connected, so it looked like a CL. Jekyll Hildy. And I remember hearing that, and nobody else was getting up. I was like, "Who the fuck is Jekyll?" And then I looked back at my mom, and my mom goes, "Day day," and she's like waving, like, "That's you, stupid." Like, did the slumped walk of shame up and be like, "Yes, I'm Jekyll Hildy." So yeah, that is a moment that really scarred me.
Mhm.
I should have changed my name to Jekyll Hildy. Just to see the look of confusion on people's faces when they read my ID or something.
Oh, that was so funny.
Yeah, I'm always confused too when people read my. I mean, people always mispronounce my last name. I, in fact, mispronounced my last name until I was in college, and I was like, "Wait, what? What?" Um, but when people would mispronounce Jade, I'd always
How do
think
you mispronounce Jade?
it's a word. Like, it's not just a name, it's a word. It's a mineral, like a gem that exists in nature. Like, how do you not? And it's just one syllable, and it looks like how it's spelled. So, but I guess that's one of the other anxiety inducing things about going back to school is that roll call of
Oh, yeah.
dating. Did people mispronounce your name a lot or get it wrong or call you something different?
It was more of like my last name, like because I like my last name is hyphenated, and so I would have to explain like it starts with Murray and it's not
Hmm.
Cruz. Like so people would hear it and they would look in the C's and I was like, no, 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 it's M's. And they're like, that doesn't make sense. And I was like, so having to
God, people.
explain that was like always the worst. Um and then like, my name being Allura, that's kind of like a rare name. So they would always make comments. They're like, oh, I've never heard that before. Oh, that's really pretty. I'm like, please, like, go to someone else. Like, stop calling me.
It's about changing your name.
I used to hate it because I used to want to, those souvenirs that has like the
Mm.
stereotypical like regular names. I used to
Just.
be so upset because I could never find them, but now I'm very thankful of the name that I have.
Well,
So,
how did Steph choose Allura?
one of her sisters friends like in high school or middle school or something had like come over and I think their name was like I don't know if it was straight Allura or if it was like Allure, like some type of name similar to that, and she really liked it. And so when I was born, my dad wanted to name me like a Chamorro name, and Steph didn't like them. I think another one, like my grandma wanted to name me Frances, and she was like, absolutely not. And so she came up with Allura.
There is like a strong contingent in island cultures that pick up very old lady names.
Yeah,
That must be like a church thing,
it
is
is a
it?
church thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah,
was
because
neat.
a lot of Filipinos that are like Francis and Beatrice and like all
Yes.
old school names. Yeah. Church, am I right? Oh, put on a bake sale, why don't ya? Oh yeah, it was always kind of demoralizing when you couldn't find the keychain with your name on it.
Yeah,
You just you want to be seen sometimes.
only sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes if a teacher mispronounced my name, I'd be too afraid
Hmm.
to correct them
And then
because
it's like that for the rest of the year.
yeah, because it's your elders and they're an authority figure, so you just don't want them to feel bad or embarrassed. And who am I to say, oh, yeah, here's how you have to pronounce these Vietnamese and Norwegian things? Like, who am I to say any of that? So it was always about keeping the peace. Now, were there classes? I guess this is like high school and college where you were just really bad at it and felt like you were disappointing your teachers all the time? Like, what was your worst subject, I guess?
My worst subject has always been math.
2 plus 3.
I remember in my sophomore year, I had to take like algebra 2, and that was like the only time I got like a D in a class because I
Hmm.
just could not get the content. And also, I had like this terrible, like, math teachers are always the worst. Like, they just don't know. I think it's their, like, how their brain works. Because, like, math people and, like, math STEM people think differently than
Hmm.
like the writing and like the arts people. And so I feel like math teachers just don't know how they think very analytically, and like they just don't know really how to like teach and like have that kind of human empathetic involvement in like what it takes to teach someone hard concepts.
Hmm.
And so I also couldn't really understand her. They had like this really thick German accent and she frightened me, so I never asked questions. So I just totally tanked that class. And so I had to take it again with this other teacher who was very nice. He reminded me of Santa Claus.
Oh.
And I would like stay at lunch to like get extra help because I was like, this is the second time I'm taking this class. Like, I need a pass. And
Mhm.
then math wasn't required for senior year, so I didn't take it.
And he was like, "Ho ho ho, young lady, sit on my. I'll show you how to divide."
Exactly. So yeah, math has always been so terrible for me. I just can't do it. I've always struggled and I've always cried and had mental breakdowns with numbers.
Math is challenging because it was never for me put in a context. I know there's got to be great math teachers out there, and I know we know one person who's going to become a math teacher,
And
and
I just don't understand her.
she is just a superhuman sent to earth, and we
Yes.
gotta have Danny on the podcast sometime so she can share her glory with the rest of the world. But other than that, I think, even when I became a teacher, I was like, oh, okay, let me give these math teachers a chance, maybe get to know them. Nah, very disappointing people, very, very disappointing. Um, so it seemed useless to me because it wasn't contextualized, and I know it's not useless, but there was no one to show me how this applied, and I really wish they would just show you how to do taxes and
Literally, more useful things that you use in everyday life.
yeah, like I never use algebraic equations to find like the perimeter of two adjacent yards split by a parallelogram or an intersecting byline. And I know if anybody's listening and they're like, that's not mathematically correct, you suck. Turn on this podcast. We don't need you listening. But it's just all of this. It's just very academic. It feels
Mhm.
very colonial. Like, here's all these big words and concepts that we're going to tell you that you need to know, but it has no practical usage in your life to live successfully. So it just feels like this elitist way to be like, oh, here's these benchmarks of things that you've been told you need to know. So jump, monkey, jump. It's so stupid. My worst subject was friendship. It was chemistry.
Ooh,
Yeah, that one was rough. Okay, so my chemistry teacher in high school was a fascinating little man. He looked like a real life Luigi Mario
yeah,
from Mario Brothers.
crazy.
It was uncanny. The mustache, the big eyes, the kind of second tier character. Yeah, just total sidekick. A very short little man, and he was so small and compact. Also very hairy too. I remember he'd wear these. Yeah, God, he was such a science teacher. He'd wear these button-up shirts, the thin white ones where you could see his. I don't know what else to call them besides a wife beater. I know that that's offensive to a lot of people, but you know what I mean. The wife beater tank top underneath, and then he'd have a pocket protector in the front pocket with all of his different pens and things. So such a science teacher, and he was so little, but he had this voice that would overmodulate. It was so extreme. It was like whoever created human beings was like, we're going to create this little person, and then we're going to put all octaves of the human voice box into this one little body. Because he'd get up in front of class and he'd be like, hello, class. We're going over the periodic table today. And so I was literally so distracted by this roller coaster of voice
Mm-hmm.
that I would just be giggling in the corner, like, what the fuck? Like, how is he making his voice do that? It was like watching a live cartoon. And so I was so distracted by that, I couldn't listen to anything he was saying. And then we get into this periodic table, and that doesn't make any fucking sense. And you gotta memorize all of these different combinations of things. And I just wanted to blow shit up. Experiment stuff, but I hadn't passed any of the tests to qualify for the safety regulations to run an experiment. So here I am. By the way, this is an AP class too, because by some administrative mistake, I was in all these AP classes in high school and couldn't afford to take any of the AP tests. So, what a waste of time. So I'm just sitting in this AP chemistry class watching all these smart white and Korean people who went on to do amazing things. And I'm just sitting there in the corner with my torn sweatshirts being like, isn't that cool? They made bubbles. And yeah, I think that I got a D that first semester. I think maybe I raised it to a C minus because I passed chemistry. But it was terrible. It was the first time at school that I just couldn't understand anything that was happening whatsoever. It was very, very disorienting. And my brother's a biochemist, so
Oh God.
yeah. Those genes skipped me.
Like, the STEM like career fields, I have no idea what they do. Like, I don't know what a biochemist does.
So when you buy shampoos and stuff, a lot of times, from what my brother has explained to me in very condescending layperson language, is that there's certain chemicals that bind the ingredients in shampoo. That's what a biochemist does.
It's crazy.
Like, find ways to put these chemical materials together so that they don't burn your fucking scalp off. But he's also applied for jobs like the lacquer that they put on the rides at Disneyland. Like, so all these
That's
things.
so like minute stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah. But so much of our daily life depends on a biochemist's ability to put those materials together so that it's safe and non-toxic. And he has done research with like sustainable lighting, for instance, like finding new ways to create LED bulbs. I think we've just lost like 45 listeners in the past 30 seconds because this is
I mean,
highly.
this is crazy.
But yeah, biochemists do that, but they also can create meth and create bombs. There's that. Biochemists also do that. Let's not forget about nuclear war.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, the show The Americans. This is a
No.
very question, but it's about KGB agents in the 80s.
Oh.
The season that I'm watching right now, because I'm 10 years behind on all TV, they're dealing with bio weapons. So, viruses that they can put in the water to kill a whole country. So that's biochemistry too.
Interesting. Yeah, I like the mass destruction
Mm-hmm.
side of biochemistry. That sounds like fun and exciting
Yeah.
work to be a part of.
Way better than making shampoo.
Yeah, we don't care about that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember a really embarrassing, traumatic moment from school?
Yeah, I believe there was like 15 years of them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of one that will make you laugh. Some of them are very sad. I mean, there's always ones where you fall in front of everyone.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah, one time I knocked a tooth out by falling. I just fell flat on my face. There were other times in elementary school. So my elementary school was in Pedro, and it was very highly racially segregated. And of course, I didn't fit into any group, so I was often alone.
Mhm.
And it seemed like a lot of the bullying came from girls who saw me as a weak and easy target, like the slow gazelle, you know? Why did I choose gazelle? Let's say slow water buffalo. So it was easy to attack me. So I remember a couple of times, like one time, the sixth grader, she was throwing away her lunch and then just came like running full force at me and knocked me down like a linebacker. And this was during lunchtime where everyone was at the tables and everyone at the school saw it, including the lunch ladies and the volunteer, like the parent moms who volunteered during lunchtime and all the playground supervisors. They all looked at me. Not a single person helped me up.
Oh my gosh.
And I had my lunch tray when she knocked me down, so there was all of the like fruit cup, the fruit syrup. It was spilled all over me, all the food, disgusting food that I got through state given lunch tickets was all over my fucking ill-fitting clothes because I didn't get back to school stuff. And I'm just laid out, and my elbows are all scraped up. My palms are scraped up because I tried to stop my fall. Like, I skidded because this kid was big. Like, she was a sixth grader, so she just fucking knocked me flat. And so I'm like bleeding and covered in food, and everyone's just looking at me. And I had to like get up and clean myself off and just suck it up. I was too embarrassed to go to the nurse's office because then I would have had to walk all the way around the lunch area. So I just went out and hit that tetherball to myself. So yeah, there was a lot of that. There was this really hot girl named Angelina. She was like overly sexualized too. And she was part of like the Mexican group at school, and she was super cool. Her hair was always done. She had jewelry on. She wore booty shorts. And for some reason in third grade I was like, "Oh my god, she's so beautiful." And she used to like just randomly hit me or kick me and make all of her friends laugh. And that's probably why I never pursued a relationship with women. Hot girls will always kick my ass. So anyway, there's a lot of those. I
Yeah.
could go on for the rest of the podcast, but do you have any embarrassing moments or bullying that you would like to trauma dump with?
Yeah. I remember I was bullied in elementary school. I don't know like what. I think I probably blocked it out. But I remember it was really just because I also wasn't speaking, and so that was like really hard. And I just remember coming back to my parents and being like, I'm being bullied and I don't know what to do. And I like remember them telling me, like, they're like, just call them out on their shit. Like, just like stand your ground. Like,
Oh.
and so I think I did that. I don't remember what the situation was, but I remember after that, like, I wasn't bullied by them again. And I think that was like the first time I felt like good about myself and that I was like able to stand up for myself. Um, yeah, but I was just always like held back by like my shyness. Like, I remember this one time I wanted to get like the school lunches like this one week. And so like my mom like put the money in like the school account or whatever, but I was so deathly shy of like actually standing in line and going
Mm.
up because I never did it before, that I literally like didn't get it that whole week. Like, I went to school like the entire day without eating, and I didn't even tell my mom about it. She like got a call from the school to be like, hey, she has an outstanding, like, she still has like funds in. She was like, Allura, did you not eat this whole week? And I was like,
Mm.
yeah, about that. No, I didn't.
Or-
And I also remember like in second grade, we had this one assignment where we had to like tell everyone about, like, we had to do a presentation on ourselves and like all of our favorite things. And I remember that was so like anxiety inducing
Mhm.
because like I had to like stand in front of like my whole class and tell them intimate details about myself in second grade, and I remember this one girl like laughed after the presentation, and I was destroyed that entire day afterwards.
What did you say that made her laugh? What was she laughing at?
I don't even remember. I don't know. I block out so many things. I don't have details. I just remember the feeling.
That sucks. It's kind of nice though that you block out the details, because I feel like when things like that happened, I would replay it in my head over and over again till this day and beat myself up for it. Like, "Ah, that was so stupid. Why did you say that?" So I was silent in school because I was trying to minimize the things that would replay. And that's an unfortunate thing when you're a quiet kid, because people think it's easy to make fun of you and that you'll just take it. Which is really cool that you stood up for yourself and that your family was supporting you in standing up to bullying. Which, I mean, when I was growing up, here's our generational difference. Bullying wasn't even a word that we talked about. So it's nice that you had people. I mean, I would pay top dollar to see what you yelled at that kid that one day that made you feel confident of yourself. I bet it was vicious. um, but I remember just being so silent. This one girl named Valerie, she's such an asshole. I think maybe I've talked about her before, but she had all these different like color coordinated bows for all of her outfits.
Ugh.
And her mom was the room mom every year that I was in class with her, and she was always there on campus. This lady just had nothing else to do. But she would make fun of me in front of everyone because I never contributed to class parties, when you got to bring food or you celebrate someone's birthday. Which, by the way, it's fucked up because I have a summer birthday, and so I never got any kind of birthday celebration. Now at school, they're like, let's do one for everyone, no matter when you're born. Inclusive, diversity, equity. But back in the 80s, that was like, oh, you're born in August? Too bad. So sad your mom was slutting it up around Thanksgiving time. So I never got any of that and was too poor to contribute anything else. And this lady would just make fun of me and ridicule me. And I was so silent that I never spoke up. So all the kids in my class had this adult who was making fun of me. So they would just pile on. And it was very frustrating. And like your lunch line situation I had back in the day, so now things have actually gotten better because at schools now everybody gets a lunch no matter what. There's food for everyone. And when I volunteer in my kids classes, like if there's kids with no snacks, like this past year I asked for parents to donate snacks, so everybody always had a snack because I could see those kids just like sitting there silently afraid to ask for anything. And I was definitely that kid. So we had these lunch tickets. They were yellow and blue, and they were perforated, so every day I'd pull one off and I'd hold it in my palm so tightly it'd be all sweaty and crinkled, and the lunch lady would be like, ugh, did it to her. But sometimes I would tear the wrong day if I got the date wrong, and you were just shit out of luck if you had the wrong date. Which is really fucked up because if you're in first grade and you think it's the 15th instead of the 14th and you bring in the wrong lunch ticket, you just don't eat all day. And then I was in Latchkey, so I was in or what is now like kids club or after school program. And so I would be on campus till like 6 o'clock at night and eating anything. Yeah, so it was, and then I would never say anything because I was too embarrassed. So I'm probably bad at chemistry because I was malnourished.
Mhm.
That part of my brain didn't develop, didn't have enough proteins or whatever. Proteins, as Mr. Licata would say. But I'm glad that with every generation that goes by, people are going to talk about bullying, how to stand up to it, and hopefully things are getting better. I think they are.
Yeah, I think bullying is necessary. Hot take.
Okay, so what kind of bullying do you think is constructive?
I think that bullying builds character. Not like the severe, like, hazing or like those like extreme cases, but I think kids just need to be picked on a little bit every once in a while to humble them and also to deal with it. Like, not everyone is going to like you. Not everyone is like going to be your biggest fan. Sometimes people are going to pick on you just because they can or because it makes them feel good. And so like you need to know how to deal with that because you're always going to come across people who are going to do that to you throughout your life,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And so when we shield kids from like this recurring pattern and behavior, I don't think we're doing them any favors, like they need some kind of conflict and hardship in order to like deal with it and like know how to deal
Yeah.
with
Yeah. Because there's always going to be problems. I think the best thing we can do is teach kids how to deal with problems. Now at my kids' school, they have these charts and these spaces in the classrooms for they call it social emotional learning. So if you have a conflict with one of your classmates, this chart gives you lots of different strategies for how to address it. So I think they're trying to say that, like, okay, you guys are gonna have conflicts. You are gonna fight on the playground and you're gonna hate sitting next to each other, but how do you deal with it? So I think that is getting better, like how to talk about it, how to deal with it, because it's always going to happen. And I agree, I don't think we necessarily need to shield kids from that, because I think it's an important lesson to learn that not everybody is for you, and to let go of that. Like, just let go of people, because fuck them,
it.
like, you can't get hung up on that. But I also don't want it to go so far as when people say things like, oh, you had a hard childhood or you had this hard time, that's what made you strong. I don't think that is the case. Like, I don't think we need to have these traumatic experiences to become a strong person, but we do need to just know how to deal with those
Mhm.
difficult moments. But sometimes bullying is just kind of fun too.
But I think that I am a bully in life now, but a good bully.
Hmm. Do you have an example of your good bullying?
um well, sometimes some people are just overconfident and
Gotta knock them back.
I just need to knock them down a peg just to like let them know, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, you keep them humble.
Yeah.
I like it. Is
Like I
that
I know like I bully Kaylee all the time, but he
hmm
deserves it.
yeah, because he's too happy.
And it's so irritating, So like in
Hmm.
those instances, that's fine.
Hmm.
But the difference is like I know he can take it. Like if I was just bullying someone who like was just weak-minded in general, that
Hmm.
would be fucked up.
Yeah. Well, that's good because you read people enough to tell. It's
Yeah.
not like mean to everyone
Like
who's
I
happy.
only bully my loved ones.
It is its own love language for sure.
Yeah. Like if I
And
am mean to you or bully you, it means I like love you.
it is a really good way to filter out the people who can handle you
Yeah.
too. Like, I notice that sometimes I'll make a joke anywhere in public. A little cringe. I'm like, oh well, you're not for me because you don't get that.
Yeah.
So I agree. It's a form of love. It's how you can tell who's meant to be around you.
Mhm.
And now I know that when you're mean to me, it's because you love me.
Also, I'm like never mean to you because I love you so much and I want you to love me.
Uh-oh, mixed messages. Did
I'm
you
just
ever
full of juxtapositions and mixed messaging.
keeps it spicy?
Yes.
Did you ever have teachers that you made fun of? Because that was one of my favorite things to do in school.
I think I was always afraid of them, so I didn't really like make fun of them.
Hmm. Did you have a teacher that you can say now made you really uncomfortable or you didn't like?
I was trying to think of one, and I don't think I can't, like, I remember there was like some teachers in my middle school, like there was rumors that they were maybe pedophiles, but I never took them.
Never.
So I wasn't exposed to that, thank goodness. Um but yeah, I just remember I had really mean teachers,
Mm.
but it wasn't like molesty type uncomfortable, which was good.
Were they mean? That's generally good. That's where we stand on that.
Yeah.
TMMU's official statement: molesting pedos, not good.
Not good. And I stand by that statement.
All around on this episode. Yeah, I had a lot of mean teachers too. My kindergarten teacher, you think kindergarten teachers would be loving or whatnot
Mhm.
because you're fucking 5 and still shitting your pants sometimes. But man, my kindergarten teacher, Miss Spinelli, I hope she's rotting somewhere. She would just humiliate me just unsolicited humiliation. Be playing kickball or whatever, and I'm running the bases, and she'd go, "Oh, look at Jade! Oh, this is fun!" And like she's had like flailing her arms like I'm just some kind of rag doll. And then she would just make fun of my voice because I was a real quiet talker and I'd kind of mumble. She was just so mean. And then second grade, I think I blocked grade. So traumatized by kindergarten. And then second grade, I had this lady named Mrs. Sam. And both of these ladies had those really short haircuts
Ugh.
that were puffed up at the front.
Yes.
That was kind of a true Karen, you know, and they had pleated skirts, very severe, very German. Mrs. Sam, oh my God, she just yelled until her face turned red and she'd shout at the top of her lungs. So I really tried to stay on her good side. I just sat with my hands folded. I remember one time though, a student in front of me dropped a pencil while she was talking, and I leaned over to pick it up and hand it to them, and she was like, "Jade, what are you doing? You're not listening to me!" And just on the leash. I just gave her a pencil. I'm sorry. And so she just made me wilt. Part of my spirit died in second grade. Speaking of pedophiles, in sixth grade, when I moved to I moved to a new school, and it was the first time I had a male teacher, and his name, oh, I won't say his name, but he seemed like a really nice guy. I was like, wow, I have a male teacher. This guy's cool. He looks kind of Asian, so maybe he's one of these mixed magic people. And so I was just really enjoying, like, oh, I hate being at a new school because I hate all these fucking white kids making fun of me all the time, but at least I have a good teacher. Halfway through the year, he's been fired for touching students inappropriately.
Not the diddling sixth graders.
Yes, and you know what's really messed up? My first thought was, he never touched me.
Bastard.
Am I pretty enough?
That would be my same thought too. I would be a little hurt.
Can't even get a pedophile's attention.
Oh my gosh.
I think my favorite teacher though was okay, so in high school when you had to pick a language, I was being very counterculture because I was very punk rock. So I didn't choose Spanish, which is one of the dumbest decisions I've ever made. What did I do? I chose German because that's what we use a lot here in Southern. So I chose German, and my teacher was the literal fucking king at medieval times.
That's crazy.
And he looked the part. He had the full beard, the long curly ringlets. Like that's just how he looked. But sad life. He drank from the same coffee cup every day, and it looked like he never washed it because it was stained brown on the inside. And he rotated 2 sweaters, and one I remember had a landscape of a forest with eagles soaring over the treetops, and the other one was just more of a plain striped thing. Same pants every day. And you might be saying, well, Jade, be understanding. Maybe he had like 3 or 4 pairs of the same Dockers. No, because he would drip his coffee one day and that stain would be on the very same pants the next day. Yes. Every tog, with today, every tog, he wore the same clothes. So me and my friends would make fun of him because he was just so evidently sad. Here was a king, a veritable king, who was living the scumbaggiest life as a German high school teacher.
That's crazy.
He claimed that he knew 12 languages, which I think qualifies you as like Mensa status genius. But it's hard to imagine that if you were a genius, you would wear the same clothes every day and drink out of the same cup. And he would often leave the classroom. I'm not sure to do what, but his name was Mr. Harrell, and in German, the word for Mr. is Herr. So it was Herr Harrell. And so me and my friends just got going with alliteration. So if he would leave the class and the classroom phone would ring, we'd answer it, Herr Harrell's house of hot hung hunks. And then that just rolled into this whole backstory of his. And but yeah, we never knew much about him because when we'd ask him a question, he'd pause for a really long time and just smile. Maybe it was something he learned at medieval times, like to look regal. If someone speaks to you, just stand there and smile. But he was a very unsettling person to be around.
He seems very unsettling.
Yeah,
He
but
seems like a very interesting man.
I would love, if he's still alive today, I would love to go interview him and be like, yo, what is up? And why, after 4 years of German, do I only remember Geburtstag, birthday, and Flughafen? Why? Why is that all he can remember? Again, wait.
This, now that you're telling me about this one teacher, it reminded me of this other crazy person. He wasn't crazy, he was just strange. He taught like I think it was like criminal studies, something like that.
Ooh.
And I had him like in my junior year. This man was so weird. He would always make comments about his ex-wives.
Oh.
And like every time it was like a different ex-wife. So we're just like, how many do you have? And he would always say like something like terrible about them or like something terrible about marriage or something. And it was always so funny and just like so random. Like we were not talking about that at all. But we were obviously talking about like murder and crime. And so he would make analogies to his ex-wives. And then he would just like leave the classroom for like long periods of time
to go murder his ex-wife.
And we would all just be like working on things. Like he wasn't lecturing, like he would just give us busy work, but then he would completely disappear for like long chunks of time. And then, like, randomly, he would blast. I forgot what the song was, but it was like, is he playing this again? And he would play the music video. Like, I remember the music video clearly. And I remember we were taking a final, and he was just blasting it on repeat.
Wait, what was the song?
I can't remember. I always, like, randomly remember, and I ask like my friend who was also in the class, and she's just like, oh my gosh, and she sends me the link. I can't remember what it is right now, but it was like, it was from the 80s or 90s, and it was just this weird song that he always played, and it was the only song he ever played. He was just a very strange man, but he passed away like a couple years ago, and I was just like, wow.
Oh, I wonder if they ever found the bodies.
I know.
But I bet that's
a fun person. He was professor.
He probably played that song for his ex-wives as he slowly poisoned them.
100%. It was very strange. He was a very strange man.
That's fun. At least he taught you something about marriage.
Yeah.
You know, life lessons.
Yeah.
I I feel as a teacher, I feel really bad for teachers because they're in front of kids all day long, oftentimes who are very merciless and making fun of them. So, if you were a teacher,
Hmm.
what do you think your students would say about you when they talk about you behind your back?
Ooh. Well, I know because I've thought about like maybe becoming a professor or something. I feel
Ooh.
like I would run a tight ship because that's just.
Yeah.
So I think they would probably call me a bitch and just complain about my teaching style and course load, which is fine because I understand. I'm very militant in that way. But I would hope that they would be like, they would respect me. They'd be like, at the end of the year, they'd be like, oh, I get it. Like,
Well,
nice.
you expect a lot from people. You have a high standard for people, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. But I think they would just hate the journey the entire time.
Hmm.
And then,
But
like, they would understand at the end when they got the results.
yeah, they would learn a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm. So you actually have the great privilege of having been a student of mine.
Yes.
So what students say about me behind my back? Let me have it.
Literally, no one says anything bad about you ever. It's more of,
You're a
uh,
liar.
I'm not actually. And I've been around for a while and have come to know a lot of students of yours, and they all love you so much, but they still are acting up and like not performing. And so it's mostly like them being hard on themselves and like
So
never.
I'm like the ultimate gaslighter. I make people feel bad about themselves.
Yes. So everyone
Ooh.
loves you. You're like the best like professor ever known to man.
No. Okay, here's what I think they would say about me. If I was a student in my own class, this is what I would say about me. Number one, lonely. Like, she's way too connected to the characters in these books we're reading. Number two, looks like she has the beginnings of a hunchback. Number three, skin. Number four, simultaneously over and under emotional.
The
Pretty
under
accurate.
and over emotional is crazy. That is very good um feedback on yourself.
I think so, because sometimes I'm just crying full
Yeah.
force, and then other times I'm just dead.
Yes. And there's no
Hmm.
between. But I love that.
You would. You would, because we're in the same sticker club, honey. Oh, being a teacher is really hard, and I think because you and I were both silent kids, I'm always shocked that I chose this as a profession.
Yeah, it is strange. Like, why?
I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but just the sheer idea of standing in front of other human beings and speaking is creates a debilitating anxiety almost. And I know when I get into class, I just kind of switch it off and I perform. It's just like an act. But it makes me so anxious that I'm on the verge of barfing. It's like the chunks are behind my teeth before every class for the first 3 months of the semester. Semester's only 4 months long, so it's most of the. But like to help get me through, I know we've talked a lot about awful teachers and weird teachers, but I had this teacher in the fourth grade named Miss Ono, and she was the first Asian American teacher I'd ever had. She was Japanese from Hawaii, and she that alone made a big difference. Just to see someone who looked like my people, who shuffled her feet the way my mom did in the house, who had similar eating practices and ways of speaking, talking with the world, all of that cultural stuff. But she also seemed to be the first teacher who, even though I was silent, she still noticed me. I remember she called my mom in for a conference because I was gripping my pencil so hard that I was getting calluses on my finger, and I was ripping the paper because I was trying so hard to. I think this is when we were learning cursive, so I was trying so hard to get it perfectly that I was literally breaking everything down, even my own body. So she calls my mom in for a conference, and my mom is like, "What the fuck is she intruding on my privacy and wear too much red lipstick?" So she was mad about everything. But it made a big impression on me because it's like this teacher is noticing me, like, and she cares, like she wants to help me get better. So she was showing my mom ways that we could deal with it and maybe reduce some of my anxiety about schoolwork and whatnot. But the kicker was at Christmas time, she invited me and my friend Juana to her house. And I know this is like against so many laws now, but the 80s, woo, wild and free, just snort that cocaine and do what you want. She invited us to her house to make Christmas cookies.
Aw.
And I didn't even know that making Christmas cookies was something that you could do. I thought it was just something you bought at the store. And, I never had those at home. So I was like, wait, you can make them and like you could decorate them however you want. And it was just such a nice experience to go to her home that had shoes at the door, that had the rice cooker on and all of these tropical fruits on the table, and then do this very American luxurious thing of making Christmas cookies. And she was just so nice and so welcoming. And so when I get overwhelmed with teaching, I honestly still to this day think about Miss Ono. It's been 30 years since I've been in her class, but she really sticks with me. So even when students are not doing what they need to do, I try to remember her and be like, just show love. Like, just make this Christmas cookie today. Like, let go of people eyeing your hunchback. It'll be okay if you just show them love. So I guess that's a positive thing to end on because our podcast is very negative and uncomfortable, but I know positivity makes us uncomfortable too.
Mm-hmm.
So, Miss Ono, I hope wherever she is, she's doing well because I loved her so much.
That's nice.
What is your advice to help people as they begin the new school year, Alara? How do you get through these uncomfortable moments?
Yes. Well, I like mentioned before we started, like I'm kind of going to a new school too, so it's kind of I'm in that space now. Um
Congratulations on your new position, you superstar.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm very much uncomfortable. Like I have a lot of anxiety of just like the unknown. It's a new like environment, it's new people, it's just like a whole new arena. And so I am just a little bit comforted that I know some people in the new space. But I always like to be very prepared. So I always like to go to the school like before it's even necessary and just like look to see where everything is or like where the main like monuments are so that on the first day I kind of know where I'm going and I'm not lost. And then
Oh
also
my, you
what?
know, do you have this recurring nightmare of going to campus and getting lost or going in the wrong room?
That is always my fear.
I have it every year this time of year.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scout the monuments. Okay, sorry I
Oh yeah.
interrupted.
No, yeah, that's literally has always been my like even going to work now. Like I've been there for like 6 years, but whenever there's like a new like room number or something, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I need to go like hours before just to stake it out, just to make sure it's there and to double check. So this is gonna be a whole new campus and it's
I,
so much bigger.
our campus literally has 6 rooms on it.
I know. And I still am just like, is this the correct room? And I've been in it like multiple times. But yeah, I would say just be uber prepared and take deep breaths.
And honestly, this is my advice to you, but this will apply to other people too, is that in the time I've known you, Allura, you have grown into so many new positions, and I've seen you have that anxiety throughout those transitions and these new challenges. But as soon as you're in them, you flourish because you're so observant and you're so hardworking and just very diligent, not only in the mental and intellectual work of it, but in getting to know people and finding your dynamic within a team. So that transition period is so fleeting and temporary, and I've seen you do it multiple times. This is just another iteration of that. So 3 months from now, you're not even going to sweat these things that you're sweating now. So just trust in that we're so adaptable. Your neuroplasticity or your, trauma fueled ability to read people and adjust and fit in and work hard. All of that is going to serve you well, and you're going to do amazing. And another thing, if you're worried about these negative moments, these embarrassing things that might happen, no one fucking remembers. I mean, like, no one gives a shit. Everything that we've talked about this episode is stuff that happened to us. It's not like we don't remember all these little things that happened to other people. So other people don't remember all this stuff that happened to us. So nobody's really watching. So you can kind of take comfort in that anonymity that people are just wrapped up in their own shit. So that's kind of freeing in a way when you notice that nobody's really watching.
And that's all I wanted, is for no one to be watching me.
The end. Okay, so before we go, we're going to do a little fun game, as we often like to do on the podcast. And since this is a back to school episode, we have a little assessment quiz because, one of the most uncomfortable things about going back to school is when the teacher's like, okay, we need to figure out how much of a dumbass you are. Here's a bunch of questions. So, Allura, what is the largest organ inside of your body? And I say inside because I know you're going to say dick, and that's not right. It's not. This is a family podcast.
I was thinking of the skin, but that's like outside your body.
Correct. She's a director, people. All educated. Yes, inside your body. What is the...
So, I don't know.
Take us through your process, because I think it'll be fun to hear your thought process.
Would it be your large intestine?
And why would you say that?
Because it's large.
Because it has large attached to it. Ooh. She's an analytical thinker, people. Sign her up for Jeopardy.
Or the lungs, because there's 2 of them, and I feel like they take up a lot of space in your chest area.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Are you a doctor? When did you go to med school?
I don't know.
It's actually the liver.
Really?
Yes, your
I thought it
liver's
was like so tiny.
No, your liver's really big. I think it's processing everything that you ingest and filtering everything out. So it's pretty huge.
I thought that was the stomach. I'm gonna edit all of this so it don't sound so stupid.
I'm gonna edit in a clip of you saying liver right away. Like, hey. Oh my gosh, do you want to know? So I was born with a liver disease. And so that's why I never got like a slut era. In school, like, this is back to school. This is thematically related. There was always, people who were sexually freewheeling, and I never got to do that because I was so sick all the time. But maybe I just say that because I'm scared of wieners. Yeah, I wish I had a slut era. Okay, do you have a question for me?
Um, yes, I looked this up.
Good.
Um, it has to go with our school theme. But how many would you say students are affected by sexual misconduct by their school teachers?
And by affected, you mean they're the victim of some
Yes,
kind of sexual molestation or abuse?
100%. Yeah.
Or harassment, I guess, would it be
Yeah.
included verbal, right?
All of it is included, I would say.
97.6% because the rest of them are too ugly.
That is correct. Yes.
Oh my god, yeah! What did I write? You know, I mean, sexual predators, this is the one of the worst, most disgusting things that happens in our society.
Mhm.
When I worked, I used to work at a news station for an investigative news team. And we did, this was when To Catch a Predator was really big
Oh, I
on
love
TV.
to catch a predator.
Yeah, so I didn't work for that show, but I worked for a competing network. So we would try to keep up with them, especially during sweeps months. So a lot of my research and a lot of the hours of tapes I would have to go through would be about sexual predators and all of these terrible, abusive stories. It was just awful, and I would be nauseated. Um, all day at work having to deal with all this stuff and look at so many pictures of dicks and so many messages to underage girls. It was really awful and a very dark glimpse into humanity. But my boss at the time, she said something really interesting. Uh, and she was like, I know it's really dark and it's really hard to think about how often this happens and how many girls and women are violated. But whenever I interview these perpetrators, I always try to think that they were a victim too. Because more often than not, someone who does this learned it because it was done to them. And so I try to remember that. That was one thing I learned from working in news. And then one night I was working late going through some tapes, and one of the news anchors came up and gave me a massage, unwarranted. Also, he said, "Ew, your hands are so little." He never touched me again.
I never know where your stories are going to lead. And I'm
It's a dream.
always so shocked and surprised, and I love the endings always.
Thank you.
They're just
I'm,
unexpected.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, what is the actual percentage?
It was 10%, but that's just like on actual um people who've like reported it. So of course it's going to be a higher percentage of students that have been affected by sexual misconduct by a teacher.
Mm, yeah, so many people stay silent about that.
Yeah.
That is very sad. That would be, oh my gosh, that was so traumatizing. Um, I want to tell all the stories about molesters now, but I'm not going to because this is a long episode. But she's got stories. Okay, my question for you. This is very important. It's a geography question.
Oh, I'm terrible at geography.
Great. In
Okay,
which state were the most serial killers born? All
interesting.
your friends.
I would I oh, this is a interesting question because
You'd think it was some like backwoods area, kind of. That's where my mind.
my guess would either be on one of the coasts.
That narrows it down. What are we talking here? Are we going Little Rhode Island? Are we going Florida and all
No,
of
I
its.
would say like the most populated areas in either of the coasts, because we know that's where most of serial killer activity happens.
Okay, so do you want to go East Coast or West Coast?
Let's go with East Coast.
Okay.
But also like at the same time, like the whole like middle America, I feel like that's also could be a possibility.
Super creepy out there.
Yeah, and then like I don't know what the culture is out there, but I feel like there's not much to do.
Yeah,
So
a lot of open places too. Yeah.
and so like I feel like there goes for like a lot of experimentation of like weird, like not normal behaviors. And so I'm not really sure, but I feel like it happens everywhere in the States just from our culture and like all that stuff. So I don't know. What is the answer?
That was a very long-winded explanation to nowhere. You know, the only positive thing about the middle states is that your hotness level goes up by about 4 points,
Yeah.
maybe 5 points, because I'm like at best a 3 in California, but ooh, Oklahoma, honey, I'm rocking that 7.5. Everybody peace. So maybe a serial killer would choose me out there. It's New York.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't have the names of all the serial killers who were born there, but it's a New York, California, and then Texas.
Okay, so
So,
I was right on the coasts.
on the coasts doesn't mean New York.
Well, I was thinking California, obviously, because that's where a lot of like the Night Stalker, like the where is it, Golden Gate Killer, like so many different serial killers are in California, and then also like in New York because it's a big dense city.
I find your post rationalization to be cheating and F minus. So we've both failed our quizzes, our assessments.
But I've
So
never been good at tests. I get severe test anxiety.
yes, me too. Yeah. So how did we get here? How do we work at colleges?
I don't know. I think college is a scam.
Gonna clip that and send it to your new boss.
Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap up today, I wanted to encourage our listeners to do something very different because Allura and I share in common so many things, but one of them is that we think that everybody hates us,
Mhm.
and that the more they learn about us, the higher the fury burns. So it is really shocking and pleasing, but also unsettling and scary when people actually tell us that they like us and enjoy listening to us talk. And I just wanted to share that we got a very complimentary email from someone who's very smart and well traveled and very intellectual, who is a professor of religious studies, no less,
What?
and said he listened to the our episode on religion and really enjoyed our stories and that they are going to stick with him for a long time, which maybe is kind of a compliment that could go either way, but I'm going to choose to take it as complimentary
Yeah.
because he took the time to write it. So yeah, I think if you have things to say to us, please let us know because maybe we'll share it here. Maybe we'll choose you. Maybe you will be the student that we choose to touch on this podcast. And it's back to school. You got to practice writing. So
Yeah.
send us a message. So yeah. With that, Allura, you want to bring us home?
Yes. So please write us if you like it, and if you don't like our podcast, keep it to yourself. But follow us on Instagram at TMMU Podcast, and we look forward to your feedback. It won't necessarily change anything about what we do, say, or think, or feel, but it's just nice to hear compliments. So until next time, make good choices. Have a good school year.